What's your name and role in the university? Okay, well, my name's Mark Goodwin. I'm the course director for the BA Politics and the MA in Politics. What did you want to be when you grew up? I think I can remember being at primary school thinking I wanted to, dig up fossils and that kind of thing. The other thing that I thought was actually going to happen at one point was a chef. That's what I wanted to be really. When I was getting ready to leave school, I thought I'm not going to bother with A-levels or any of that. I'm going to go off and be a chef. Some days I wish I'd done that, but I don't think I would have been very good at it. Who or what inspired you to teach your subject? My first love really was music. I suppose I should have said what did I want to be when I grew up was a musician really, but lack of talent sort of is a real drawback, in that field. And, growing up listening to music, I don't know if it's quite the same these days, but there was a political element to a lot of music. So, what inspired me to think about politics, as a teenager, it's probably Public Enemy and The Clash, more than the news or whatever. What do I love most about teaching? It's you are continually learning when you're teaching. I think that's the thing, is the experience of being a learner was something that I, really enjoyed. I was one of those people, I always wanted to know everything about everything. And I think when you're in a position of being a teacher, it gives you that opportunity and gives you permission to keep learning and keep trying to refresh what you know, keep trying to think about new ways to get it across. What's interesting about this? Why is it important? Why do other people think it's important? And different ways to communicate that. And I think, some of the things that I teach, in some of my modules, we're teaching books that are 500 years old, right? And every year I'll go back to them and think there's something new there. There's something I haven't seen there. And it's a real sort of privilege to be sort of given that opportunity to spend time thinking about these things and then try and communicate that to other people and people who are encountering these things for the first time. What's the biggest myth about your subject? Okay, this will be easy. The biggest myth about our subject, two, I would say. One is that what we do is sit about exchanging opinions about politics and who should be running the country and setting the world to rights. Okay, nothing wrong with that. In the back of a cab, fine, but it's not much of a basis for an academic subject. Okay, so we try and study the subject in quite a different way, much more systematic, much more scientific, really trying to understand the subject. It's not a sort of pub conversation, about, who should be England manager or what kind of thing, but just transferred to the world of politics. So that would be one. That's not the way we study the subject. Two would be, I think most people probably who don't know about politics as an academic subject think it's all about what politicians are doing in the Houses of Parliament. Okay, that's a very, very small part of what politics is about. That's the tip of the iceberg. To me, politics is a much, much broader subject than that. It's about why the world is the way it is. It's about who gets what. It's about who says who gets what. It's about who we are, what our identity is as a community, as a nation, as a culture. It's about how we should live. Okay, what are the rules, norms, values that we should live by? And it's much, much broader than what's going on in the Houses of Parliament, which, to be quite honest, 99% of the time, the way politics is covered in the news is extremely dull to me, right? A person whose living is to talk about and think about politics. So I think that would be the second myth, that it's all about what politicians are doing. What's your teaching style? I suppose what I try to do when I'm teaching is always be thinking about what would it be like for somebody who didn't know this, right? Trying to always put myself in the position of somebody who's encountering this stuff for the first time, who, may not have a lot of background or a lot of experience, and try and think about, well, what can I connect it to that's in their experience? What can I connect it to that's in their understanding? And how can I sort of help people to see why this is important, why it's relevant? I mean, a colleague of mine always used to say, never underestimate students' intelligence or overestimate their knowledge. I think I always try and keep that in mind when you're teaching, is you particularly don't overestimate what people already know, but don't underestimate their curiosity, their intelligence, their willingness to try and understand. Do our students just sit in lectures all day? No, that's what I did when I was studying politics, primarily. We do use lectures, but I mean, I think that's only a small part of the way that we teach nowadays. We're much more likely to be doing smaller seminars, workshops where we're trying to discuss, trying to bring our own, takes on the subject to bear and exchange ideas, or, working on presentations, or, producing digital media. What's your favourite course module and why? Okay, well, I think of mine, the one that I like the most, I teach a module on history of political thought. And what I like about that is the challenge of trying to explain to people what is so important about books that we study, which in some cases are 300, 400, 500 years old. People have a lot of exposure to kind of contemporary politics, and they have a picture in their mind of what politics is about. But I think the way the subject started is much more about ideas and about thinking about different ways that the world might be organised. And I think when you return to like some of those sort of classic texts or classic sort of pieces of political thought, you could see that at some point somebody had to work out, and somebody had to go through the work of thinking about, well, is democracy a good way of organising things or not, right? Do we want people to have a lot of freedom, or do we want there to be a lot of social control? Is politics a sort of force for good in the world, or is it just a necessary evil? Could we do without it, right? And some people had to go right back to those fundamentals and really think about those basic questions. And, from a certain point of view, so that's my favourite module to teach. As a student, I'm worried about the academic workload. Should I be? Yes, university study is different. You have a lot more independence. But the modern university does not just leave you to deal with it. That's perhaps the way things were a long time ago. But, nowadays there is an understanding that transition often needs some support, and at Coventry in particular, they're very good at sort of coaching people through it. We have dedicated student coaches who help people through the process, whether it's workload or just university life. And that sort of support system outside the classroom is really, really strong. What difference do you think your subject area makes to the world? Well, what more important subject could there be? Okay, the thing that attracts me, and I think attracts most people who study politics to the subject, is they have this desire within them to try and understand why the world is the way it is. Okay, and in most cases, the reason that the world is the way it is because of politics. So there has to be some core of people who have an understanding of that world, okay, and understand what's going on, what the system is, how it works, why things happen the way they do. I always say to our students, there's a responsibility on you once you've studied politics, right, to share what you know and what you understand about the way the world is with other people. I think that's quite an important part of studying the subject, because, we shape the world. Yes, technology, yes, economics do, but ultimately they're operating within a political framework. And the decisions about how, decarbonisation is going to happen, how climate change is going to be addressed, right? Some of that solution will be technological, but most of it's going to be political. I think it's the most important subject there is, really. I certainly don't think there's much of an argument to say, well, the problem with the world is that too many people understand politics too well. I think it's the opposite.